Okay, let's get going. Before I start, are there any questions about anything we've done in the previous classes? Okay, then let's get going. Today is our last class. I want to thank all of you for suffering through this over the last several weeks. I do appreciate that. Small class today, which I fully expected. It's normal for people, for whatever reason, to drop this class because, I don't know, I guess they don't actually want the data they spent so much time collecting, and given the change in schedule. But we're here and we're going to have fun, aren't we? So today we're doing data and reporting. And this is just, some of the standard stuff that I've pulled in from Qualtrics, and further down this block, I randomized all the questions so that we can take a look at the data that's related to randomizing. We looked at it a little bit before, but we'll take a closer look today. And I think I've shown you a couple of times you can create dummy data by going to generate test responses. And usually you want more than just 5 responses. These additional options, you might want to click allow unanswered questions. By default, Qualtrics will create data for every question, as though everybody answered every single question, which we know doesn't happen unless you force them to, and they might get upset at that. This verbose output, you don't need to look, it's just the output that comes over here, and I don't know why they have it. There's nothing you can do with it. So I have already generated some data because it can take, this part doesn't take too long, but getting it loaded into the data and analysis tab, page, whatever you want to call it, can take a little while, especially if you have a lot. So we've seen this before, but we'll look at it in more detail today. When you first, yes?
Can I ask a question about this?
Sure.
So if you generate test responses, I tried doing this in one of my own surveys recently. Will it be visible if you have errors in your survey flow based on how the test response data comes through?
It could. It depends on what the errors in your survey flow are. And that's why when you're testing your survey flow, you really need a human being to go through the survey and try it out, try the various different options that you've built into it. The test responses are great, but it's no match for a human being actually sitting down and trying out your survey. So when you first come into data analysis, and we're going to look a little bit later at results and reports, those can be useful too. You're automatically put into what they call the data table. There's text IQ. This is really a very, very rudimentary text analysis. If you want to do this, I'm not going to go through this because it's takes a while to set up. This is good if you want an online report, which we're going to look at to do a little bit of, as I say, rudimentary text analysis. Beyond that, if you're doing real honest to goodness qualitative research, you need to download your data and put it into something like Atlas TI or NVivo, or a real qualitative analysis package. Crosstabs IQ, I don't find this very useful because it has, I'm going to skip this. And you can make crosstabs with this, and it takes a while for it to go through your data and set all this up. When I first clicked on Crosstabs IQ this morning when I was setting this up, it took about 20 minutes to set all this up, just for Qualtrics to do it, not me doing anything. And it makes very basic crosstabs. They are not published quality. You're going to have to bring your data into something that makes much nicer tables and graphs and charts to submit to a publisher. So you might as well just do all your graphs and charts and whatnot in that other thing rather than doing it here as well. Weighting, you can do weighting in Qualtrics. I suggest not doing it in Qualtrics. Download your data to SPSS or some other statistical package that can do the weighting correctly. Well, correctly is not really the right word. Can do the weighting that you want it to be done. Put it that way. So we'll go back to the data table. We'll probably be looking at this more than anything else. So up here, it tells you last record collected 9:05 today. That's when I generated the test data. This response quality can be useful. By default, it doesn't look for anything. You have to turn these things on. Close this window and then do it again. And you can see it says analyzing responses. So we'll keep going until that's done. This tells you, as people are doing the survey, there are responses in progress. And that's just, as soon as they start, it is now in progress. And until they click that last submit button, it is in progress. Field editor. This is okay for when you want to create new variables to be displayed in either the online report or a report through Qualtrics. If you're just going to download all your data, if you're not going to use either of these, the results or reports, and you need to create new variables for whatever analyses or research you're doing, I strongly suggest downloading the data and creating those new variables in SPSS data, Excel, whatever you're using, rather than doing it here. And the main reason for that is there's no documentation that will come with creating the variables in Qualtrics. So if you happen to make a mistake in creating the field, you won't be able to correct it unless you come back into Qualtrics, recreate the field, and then download your data again. And then again, there's nothing when you download the data that will say how you created it. And if you even export the survey to Word, as we've looked at, there won't be anything in there either. And if you have to share your data, you're going to need to tell people how you created these new variables. So there's different ways. Bucketing is a way of collapsing variables. You might need or want to ask for, say, a person's age. You want their exact age. But if you're going to share the data, age is a potentially identifying variable when you use it in combination with other things. So you need to categorize it. 18 to 24, 25 to 40, 41 to 60. And you can do that with the bucketing. Formula is just that. It's, a typical, as it says, X plus Y. Here's where you can take your height and weight fields as well and create a BMI. And combining, concatenating, which is just mashing them together, and coalesce is kind of sorting through them. As I say, these are good for the online results and reports that you can create through Qualtrics. If you're not going to use those, then do all of that in SPSS, Excel, what have you. We'll go back to the data table. You can filter. So if you don't say you only want to look at, people 18 to 24 in this data table, you can do that. What that also does, and we're going to see in a moment, is when you go to export, you can download just a portion of the data. There's all the variables. By default, it will have recorded date and then your first however many questions will fit on the row here. As it says, you can remove the column, but it doesn't delete the field, which is good. You can add things in between. Survey metadata, contact fields, embedded data, questions, etc. And it shows you, what's your zip code. You can add fields to this with the column chooser. You can select all, and you'll get a scroll bar at the bottom. But you can put in, start date, end date, and any others that you want to be able to see right from this screen. Contact fields, embedded data, and whatever other questions from the survey that you want. I have this little tool, this gear icon, and that's some holdover because it really doesn't do anything. If I click on a single response here, you see this popped up. You can edit, revert, or delete that one. But if I click on this again, it doesn't do anything. So I don't know why they didn't take it out. So as you can see, I clicked on here and I can edit that particular one single field at a time. It'll take a moment. As you can see, one request pending. We'll keep going. You can also change it just by clicking here and deciding which one you want. I don't really recommend doing this. Again, these kinds of changes are good if you're going to do the results or reports. or if you're going to download your data, you're better off making any of these kinds of edits in SPSS or Excel, where that change will be documented. And you come over here to the end, and it's view response, delete. View is exactly that. Delete it is, delete it. Retake response and retake as new response. These are useful if you want to allow your respondent to, as it says, retake the survey. Perhaps you're using this simply to collect information, from your faculty or from students in your department, let's say, and they want or need to change some information that they put in it. Let's say this is, a travel request, and they need to make a change to what they put in that request. What this does is it creates a link that you can then email to that person, and they can retake their response to the survey, and it will replace what they've already done. So if you have 100 responses, 100 respondents, and you send a retake response link, they do their thing and submit it, you'll still have 100 responses. The retake as new response, again, gives you the URL, but what retake as new response will do is, instead of replacing the one that they already had, it will simply add another response to your data set. So if you started out with 100 respondents, if you give them a retake as new response, you'll now have 101. So as I say, these can be useful, with something like asking for a travel voucher, something where you really want people to be able to change things after they've already submitted it. I have a video tutorial on my Qualtrics page about retaking tests that make use of these two types of links. And it doesn't have to be a test, it can just be a regular survey. And of course, you can export that particular response to a PDF. Again, in something like a travel request, you can print it out and save it or send it to somebody, send it through the chain of command, as it were. Tools, and this is just to save a layout. So you can decide what columns you want, apply a filter to it, and then save that as a layout. And then you can look at, different cuts, let's say, of your data. Response quality is done. Let's take a look. And everything passed because, of course, it's a generated cooked data. No ambiguous text. Everything is coming through. No pattern of unanswered questions, and no straight lining, which is where people just check down one column, like you have a matrix question and they just go right down one side, because all they're doing is just trying to get through and finish the survey without actually really thinking about anything. And if there were problems that it found, it would tell you which responses it flagged for doing that. So this can be useful. Are there any questions so far? You know, I'm kind of zooming through this. Okay. Most likely what you'll be doing is exporting your data, export and import. You can just quickly, you can export data automatically every so often. Then you have to set up the SFTP. I don't know anybody who does this. This is good if you're in a business and you want to download your data every so often so that it's not you know, accumulating on Qualtrics servers. Most of the time, you're just going to go to export data. You can also import data. Say you've done pretty much the exact same survey, say 2 years ago, and you want to put all that data together. You can take the data from the previous survey and import it into here. And now you have the 2 surveys put together. Again, that's useful if you're going to use the results or reports. If you're just going to do everything in Excel or SPSS, you might as well put the 2 data sets together in SPSS or Excel. So let's look at export data. You can export it in several different formats. CSV can be read by just about anything. TSV is the same thing as CSV, except there's tabs instead of commas in between each of the columns. This can be useful if you have fields that might have commas in them, and that can confuse some programs that look at want the CSV. Of course, there's Excel, XML. Some programs, some of the newer packages want it in this format. SPSS. We're going to look at SPSS and Excel in detail in a minute. You can have the data sent to a Google Sheet, which can be useful because if you're working with people from, say, outside Syracuse University and you want to give them access to the data, you can export it to a Google Sheet and then give them access to the Google Sheet. And of course, then there's all the other things that are available through Google Drive, if you like using those. What's the best way to export data to avoid Unicode symbols in place of % signs or quotation marks? Those symbols can cause problems when exporting to Excel or CSV. We're going to look at Excel in a moment, so we'll discuss that in just a moment. User submitted files. There is a type of question that allows a user to upload a file to attach to their responses. This allows you to download all of those all together, all at once, in a great big zip file. So let's look at Excel. By default, you can see here, download all fields. We're going to look at this. As you can see, it's already checked. And what they mean by download all fields is exactly that. All the fields that they collect automatically, which are, about a dozen. We're going to see those in a moment, plus all of the responses to your questions. Numeric responses are choice text. As we talked about way early, like maybe the second class when we talked about recode responses, what you see here, like yes or Hispanic, that's what Qualtrics displays to you. But behind the scenes, there's actually a number associated with this. Might be 1, 2, this might be 5, etc. And by default, when you download to Excel, it will download the text. Sometimes you actually want the numeric values because you need to do kind of, a specific statistical or other analysis on it. And even if you're just doing charts, some charts won't work with text values. It has to be numeric. Whenever you're in Qualtrics and you see a link for more options, advanced options, etc., click on it so that you can see what's there. If you remember in the last class when we were doing the email to send to distribute the survey, there was that little advanced options way at the bottom, which can be very important. So you have compressed data as a zip file. This is only useful if you have a really, really big data set. As you download it, it could, weird things can happen. And the file gets corrupted and then you have to download it again. Most of the time, I don't know anybody who has had to use this and has had such a large file that this was necessary. Use commas for decimals as they do in other countries, in Europe. Remove line breaks. If you allow people a very big text box, they might hit return to, say start a new paragraph. That can mess up and confuse Excel, SPSS, anything else. So if you have those, put in the remove line breaks, and that will take those return characters out and prevent weird things happening. Recode seen but unanswered questions. This is a question that somebody didn't answer for whatever reason. And you can recode it really as anything you want. This is a holdover from the days of computer punch cards, where you couldn't have a column that was not punched. It would confuse the computer. And so people would code those answers as either -9, -8, or as it has here, -99, so that it was obvious that that was an unanswered question. Recode seen but unanswered multi-value fields. This is for check all that apply type questions. By default, Qualtrics, if the respondent checked it, they get a 1. If they didn't check it, it's blank. That's not, the end of the world, but sometimes it's helpful to have it coded as 0, so that when you download the data, you can do percentages, count how many columns were checked. Sometimes SPSS or whatever other package you're using will treat a missing column differently than what a human being would treat it as, looking at it. Export viewing order data for randomized surveys. We looked at this a little bit when we did randomization. I think it was when we were doing it in survey flow. If you're randomizing questions or you're using the randomize element in survey flow, you want to make sure that the randomization is working as you expect it to. And you can create your test data like this and then export the viewing order. And we're going to take a look at that when we actually look at some data. Split multi-value fields into columns. Again, these are the check all that apply. This is checked by default, but you always want to make sure if you have those, because otherwise, if this is not checked, what Qualtrics will do is it will take all the responses that the person checked for those and mash them all together into one column, which when you then download that into anything else, whether it's Excel or SPSS, you can't really analyze it very well. So if you have check all that apply, you definitely want to check this. Use internal IDs in header. Every question, just about like everything in Qualtrics has an ID to it. Like up here, this is the ID for this survey. You as a user have an ID. And of course, we've seen where they create an ID for respondents. I don't know what use this would be to anybody, to normal people. I imagine it's some kind of a holdover from the very early days, or maybe in some kind of an API or something, it might be useful. But for normal use, I don't see where. Exclude survey response edits. It's kind of weird. If people do edit their responses, this will exclude them, and you really don't want to do that. Include download link for user uploaded files. As we looked for downloading all those files all at once together, you do the user submitted. But this will add a link to the end of the data so that, in Excel or anything else, you can click on that link and it will download the file that specific respondent uploaded. Very much the same kinds of things in SPSS. With SPSS, the string width, this is for these kinds of text. Most of the time, 2000 will be fine. It's how many characters you're allowing in that particular column. Now, it's not the end of the world if you have, a big text column and they write 3,000 characters and you download it and you see, oh, it got cut off at 2,000. Just download it again and make sure that you increase the string width. All of these are the same as we've just looked at. the SPSS syntax file and corresponding data. That's good, especially if you're going to be sharing your data, because the syntax file can start you with part of the proper documentation that you'll need. Let's just take a quick look at that. This is the syntax file. As you can see, it creates all the variable labels, and it goes through and it does all the value labels. And at this point, that's pretty much all you need. At this point, you could start editing this and creating new variables, manipulating other ones, cleaning up the data. And that's a good way of documenting what you've done. You need to edit a little bit up here to tell SPSS where the file is. Look at it, so we did that. And CSV, it's basically the same thing. Any questions? I'm going to close that. I've already downloaded a bunch of data because it can take a little while. This download all fields. If you uncheck it, what it will download is what you see in the data table. These variables is what you'll see, and any filters on the data. That can be useful because you can create different views and download different portions of the data for other people. And so here you can see it's just recorded date Q1, right? And you can see here it says Hispanic. Yes, that's the text rather than the number. Now, if you want to download all the data, you can see start date, end date, status, IP address, progress, duration, a whole bunch of other automatically collected data. And then it starts with your survey. 9 times out of 10, you're going to want to download all of your data. If you are going to share data, you can always start with this and then create a copy of it and take out what you don't want or need to share from that, rather than going through and making different views and just downloading pieces of it. This just shows the difference between downloading the text versus the numeric response. In Excel, as you can see, this is, you have to remember what 2 was for whatever this particular question. Have you ever served on active duty in the U.S. Armed Forces? You're gonna have to remember what 2 is. So often when you're working with Excel, you want to download the text rather than the number. And finally, with this one, I clicked on export viewing order data. And they do that all the way at the end. And what I did in the survey, let's just go back for a quick second. Yeah, come on. Is I randomized the questions in one of these blocks. This one. Question is actually an entire block, this one. So when you click on the export randomized viewing order, you get all these extra variables. And what this says is that this first question in this block, did you vote in the last a political party, the display order, they saw this particular respondent saw this question first, saw this question third, this one second, this one fourth, this one fifth. You can see how it goes back and forth. And then you can check with each respondent. You can download this and you can make do a frequency table or a cross tab and just make sure that it's been randomized as you expect. That's not usually data that you need to share. It's good for testing, you know, when you run the test data after that, and you're sure that it's working properly, you don't need to download it again. It's not something that you would need to include in, you know, any kind of a journal article or report or something. And we'll take a quick look at SPSS data. It's SPSS download is real nice because it creates all of the labels, the variable labels, and does all of the value labels for you. And by default, it will download the numeric data that comes behind it, because you can program it, as we looked at in here, to display the text rather than start date. You can see it says, yes, none of these are Spanish, Hispanic, or Latino. And it'll do that automatically for all the other questions, even though it's displaying the numbers in the data table. In the output, it will display the labels. So that makes your life a little bit easier. And if you're using SPSS, you can even change it so that it shows the text in here, but it's still a numeric variable value in there. Are there any questions about exporting your data? As to the question about Unicode, by default, it will download properly. I've never had a problem myself, at least, or that anybody else has mentioned to me. You know, it's pretty smart in making sure that things like percent signs and quotation marks. I think somewhere it said, you know, that it's in Unicode format. Through all that. Results. This is good if you want to make a report. Oh, great. Of course. Are you kidding me? Back here. Try this again. Remember I told you about this refresh account thing? We'll give that a shot. Okay, I don't know what's going on, and that's unfortunate, but that's also Qualtrics. Normally, you would see some charts and tables through here. There we go, yay. It was just on those top ones. Looks like it's just on the top ones there. So this is what you would normally see. And you can make various edits. You can export this single thing. You can unpin it from the home page. You can view the data that's behind it. Various tables. You can edit. This is, as it said, more of a dashboard. You can edit this particular table and change what metrics are in it. You can add columns to it, etc., filters. You can also change etc. And you can change, you know, edit any of the items in here. And when you're done editing, you just go ahead and click done editing. This is settings that apply to the entire dashboard theme. What's nice is manage public dashboards. Is you can make a dashboard and then let other people see it, and they don't need to have a Qualtrics account because it just creates a web page. So we'll go over here. I copied that. Again, with the unexpected error, we'll go down and So now anybody who has this URL can see this this dashboard. And what's nice is that this dashboard updates as more people respond to the survey. People looking at this might have to hit the refresh page to get the newest responses, but it will update with whatever is available. You can also enable password protection, but everybody gets the same password. So that might help, it might not, whatever. It's not particularly secure. It's just one extra little measure. And we'll go back to the dashboard, and you can export it, download it, or email it to whoever. Add new pages to it, private page, report, etc. As I say, this really is for creating online dashboards. Reports, it's very similar, but you get a lot more options. Again, you can do a public report, you can download as a PDF, you can preview it. Settings again apply to the entire document, the entire page. You can insert all kinds of things. So let's just do that. You get a nice chart, and you can change the settings on it. You can even change the visualization. Of course, a line chart with this doesn't make any sense. So a pie chart, whatever. Change the color palette, change the values there, take it out again if you don't like what you did. You can copy it, remove the title, export this one as a JPEG or export it to Microsoft Word. Again, take it out. Text boxes, images, just blank space, etc. More visualizations, you can put in a page break, all kinds of neat stuff you can do. You also have the typical editing types of menu links here. Share, of course, is just like the share over there. Edit, view, insert. Double click to edit. Now you get all of these, and you can put in type data. So if you want to be able to tell people, you know, when this was last updated, it's the last response date. Again, we'll copy it. And with this, people can download their own PDF as well. And like the other report, this updates automatically as more responses come in. And again, people might need to hit the refresh button. And so you get a nice PDF that they can print out. Any questions? Okay, then. That's all we need to do for today. And that is the end of our series. I want to thank all of you very much for sticking with it all this time. And of course, if you have any questions as you in your Qualtrics journey, or really anything having to do with data, I am the research data services librarian, not just the Qualtrics librarian. You're more than welcome to contact me. I think all of you have my email. I'm going to put it in. And if there are no questions, that's it for today and for this year's series.